Time is ticking towards the end of the year, so I thought I would partake in the end of year book tag. This is where we look at some of the books I want to read before the end of the year, some I want to finish before the end of the year, and perhaps some plans into 2025. And so the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Now, of course, this does include my current reads, which are Nettle and Bone, which I am not long started, but I'm enjoying. This is the book club pick for the month of October. Very autumnal and on brand for the month. And also Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I am listening to on audiobook. So I do plan to finish in these two pretty soon. However, there is a book that I put on pause that I really want to finish before the end of the year, and that is Assassin's Quest. Now, I love Hob. I love the first two books so much. They're some of my favorite books of the year. So this is really a requirement to read before the end of the year. It did go on pause just for some of the book club books and books that I promised to have read. So, but I want to get back with the Farseer trilogy. I want to finish it off. I want to see the end of Fitz's journey for this trilogy. And what I have read was a blast. I really enjoyed the opening, and it really set up where the book's going to go. So color me intrigued. Do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Like I said, Jonathan Strange and also Nettle and Bone really matched this prompt very well. They're kind of my two autumnal books. I really wanted to read Something Wicked This Way Comes. In case you missed my book haul video, I found a copy with this absolutely ridiculous cover that I love so much. It's so over the top and crazy, and of course this would be a perfect autumnal book with sort of a horror-y sort of vibe to it. So I'd really like to get to that, but that's looking unlikely. But Nettle and Bone and also Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, maybe Something Wicked This Way Comes. Oh, I might read Performances of a Death Metal Bard. This is a novella, which means it's fairly likely that I'm going to be able to fit it in. And I did read a very early version of it and only part of it, but I really want to read the ending to it. So I think I'm probably going to try and squeeze that in. That comes out on Halloween, so it'll be into November before I get round to it. It's about a young street performer that's trying to just make his way in the world, make some money, and he starts playing death metal. However, every lute he tries just doesn't capture the brutality of the genre that he wants to create. So he finds this magical lute that makes a deal with him. It talks to him. It feels very Nightblood in Warbreaker. And suddenly he starts performing the most metal songs in this sort of medieval land. So it's really cool, this idea of the metal genre being invented in medieval times with this magical lute. What I've read was an absolute blast, so I do want to pick a copy of that up and read the final version. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? Yes. So I was talking about this with some friends recently. The run-up between now and the end of the year is absolutely insane. First of all, we have the third and final book in the Bloodsworn saga, Fury of the Gods, releasing next week. And I love this series so much. Viking, Norse-inspired fantasy, has some of the most badass characters. I love Orca, she's awesome. And the way that this book ended, I need book 3, so I'll be reading that day 1. Very excited to finish off that trilogy. And also, not long after that, on November 11th, we have The Inevitable Ruin, Book 7 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which, if you spent more than 2 minutes or watched more than one video on this channel, I probably talked about this series. It's so good. One of my favorite series of all time. I love these books so unbelievably much. That will be a drop everything to read it. However, that is the physical release. The physical release is coming on the 11th of November. The audiobook doesn't come out until February. So it'll be very strange. I don't think I can wait until February. In fact, I know I can't wait until February. This 7th book has so much, I'm not going to say so much writing on it, but it has a lot of very big moments. Even book 6 felt like it was very much leading into book 7. I think it'll be a very pivotal book in this series. So I'm really, really looking forward to book 7. However, like I said, the audio isn't coming out till February, so this will be the first Dungeon Crawler Carl book I read physically. Every single other one I have listened to the audio, because the audiobooks are absolutely incredible. If people ask me about the series, I always highly recommend the audiobooks by Jeff Hayes. It really does bring a lot to the series. However, it's an incredible series, amazing characters, really cool plot, hilarious humor, so I don't think it will be diminished any by reading the physical book. Not at all. And just getting the continuation of Carl and Donut's story, so exciting. And I completely forgot, I read the synopsis. Don't read the synopsis if you've not read the first 6 books, but there's an element to this story that is very much this or that, and I'm very concerned because neither this or that is good outcomes. It's an obsession. I love this series so much, so unbelievably much. So again, that'll be another one, dropping everything to read. And also, very much the obvious answer for this is Stormlight 5, Wind, and Truth. I got a lot of questions about these dust jackets. These dust jackets are from a company called Kraken Co. And they're really nice. I really like the spines because it has this image across all of them, which is really cool with the Stormfather and everything. However, I don't know if they're going to do the 5th book, so I might end up taking these off and showing the incredible Michael Whalen art instead from now on. But yeah, what is there to say about Stormlight 5? One of the reasons why my second book isn't coming out yet is because I offset everything so I wouldn't be releasing in December, because I know everybody's going to be reading Wind and Truth. Is gonna take over the space when that book comes out. It's probably the biggest modern day fantasy series, and this is a very big pivotal book because Stormlight Archive is planned to be a 10-book series. However, it's in 2 arcs. So this 5th book will be an end to the first arc of Stormlight, which means there's going to be some big epic moments, some fun reveals, I'm sure, and probably some character deaths, which concerned, very, very concerned. I also want to note that this question is there a new release you're still waiting for? Doesn't specify books, so I also want to chuck on Arcane Season 2, coming out in November. I'm very excited for that. That is one of my favorite shows of all time. I loved Season 1. It was incredible. So getting Season 2, that'll be, day 1, watching it. I might do a video on it. I don't really do much TV stuff. Maybe I'll do it over on Patreon and just do sort of reviews of the individual episodes or of the season as a whole. We'll wait and see if I have enough to say, but I definitely will be watching it day 1. If you haven't watched Arcane somehow and you like fantasy, sort of steampunk vibes, definitely check it out on Netflix. What are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? So, all of the new releases I just talked about. I also need to still do my Cosmere catch-up. I have been chipping away at it. I read Bands of Mourning earlier in the year. I have read the Secret History novella. So that means next up I have The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. The last book in the Era 2 of Mistborn. I've heard this one is the most Cosmere-centric of the Era 2 books, which I'm really interested to see. I do think after you read the novella, you do get a grander scope of what he's doing with the Mistborn series, with Era 1 and Era 2 and onward. But also be interesting to see how this ties into Stormlight. Again, so far, even with Bands of Mourning, it's just kind of been head nods and references to people we kind of know are in the background, whereas I think The Lost Metal will kind of be where this all comes to head. So I'm looking forward to reading that a lot. That'll be very, very interesting to see how he ends this era of Mistborn. But yes, Lost Metal, definitely. I also still need to read Elantris, which I just bought recently. I finally have a copy of it. I don't really know how much of the Cosmere ties into Elantris currently. I know there are some references at the end of keeping the spoiler free, one of the secret projects that kind of went over my head, and I believe that does have some importance in the Cosmere. However, it's not vital, but I am very interested to just kind of go back and see his first published work and kind of see how far he's come between then and also his newest release, Wind and Truth. I think it'll be quite cool to read them kind of back to back, is to finish Elantris and see where he started and then read of Wind and Truth. And of course, for the book club over on Discord, we will have a book to read in November and also December. I'm kind of hoping December's going to be Wind and Truth. We'll see what wins the voting over on Patreon, but I'm hoping that's going to win because it's going to be a struggle to try and read that chunky book as well as something else. However, it does come out on the 11th of December, so if it does pick something else, gives us 11 days to finish that before Wind and Truth, so it doesn't matter too much. We'll see what gets voted in, but that's 2 more books that I'm not sure what they are yet that I'll be reading before the end of the year. Is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? Yeah, this is the thing. Pretty much any of these books that I just went through have the potential of being my favorite book of the year, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this last quarter of the year. There are so many incredible books. I do think the most likely is Wind and Truth, Stormlight 5, my favorite series of all time, and is the end of the era. Very, very likely to become my favorite book of the year. But likewise, The Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman, the 7th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, also has potential. I mean, that's become one of my favorite series. It came out of nowhere last year and it's just become an absolute obsession. So I think if it's going to be any, it will be one of those 2. But yeah, this is the really cool thing. Even Fury of the Gods, again, it could be a stellar ending to a really good trilogy, and it could easily become the top as well. I'm just really excited about all the books before the end of the year. It's a crazy lineup. It's really cool. So very, very excited. Have you already started making reading plans for next year? Well, I've already talked about how some of these will probably leak into next year. So yes. But other than that, I definitely have some ideas of books I want to read in 2025. I have started the First Law books. I said I was going to finish them this year, but it seems unlikely that I'm going to finish them this year now. But I have started them. I've not really talked about them much because I want to do a full First Law video when I finish the trilogy. But I'm having a blast. That will probably be in 2025 that I finish that and make the full video, but early on in 2025. And with that, I'm kind of looking at starting a new big series with the end of Farseer, having read the First Law books, being up to date with the Cosmere, is very much, I'm looking forward to starting something kind of new. I kind of had 2 big series that I want to attempt. I'll probably attempt one or the other first, and that is either Malazan, Book of the Fallen, or Malazan, or Sun Eater. Those are the 2 series that I'm desperate to read that everybody else seems to be loving, that I think I will really, really enjoy. So I think 2025, I will be reading one of those. I'm not sure which. I may put it up to a vote on Patreon. I'm also workshopping some ideas of having the book club over on Discord be a longer series, because one thing we did this year was we read book 1s in lots of different series, and we read a ton of really cool stuff and stuff that I wouldn't necessarily pick up. I mean, like Nettle and Bone, I've heard about it, I've heard it's really good, but I'm not sure if I ever would have got round to it. But because the book club voted this in, it's been really cool to check out these books that are a wee bit more unusual. However, I am looking at maybe mixing in a larger series into the book club, but I need to check. I'll probably do a vote over on Patreon to see if that's something they want to do. But if we were to do it, it wouldn't be just the series. I would think it would have to alternate. So it might be like Malazan Book 1 in January, something else in February, Malazan Book 2 in January, February, March, or something like that where it alternates, especially with how big both Malazan and Sun Eater are. People have lives, people have things to do, people want to read other books, so I think having it kind of more broken up like that could work really well in the book club. And if you want to read ahead, you can, and we'll just have the channels open all year for the series. Again, I'm just kind of thinking aloud currently. I do need to check in I'll probably put some voting up on the Patreon to see what kind of route they want to take the book club in 2025. However, the book club is free to join, so if this sounds good and you want to join in, the Discord is linked in the description. Really nice community over there. You can come join and hang out and chat books. You don't need to join the book club. It is just a place to chat books. However, there are read-alongs every month, as well as buddy reads led by others in the Discord. So if you want to join that, come and hang out, chat books, feel free to do so. But if you want to see some more potential books that I'm going to pick up in the new year, definitely check out my book haul that I posted a couple days ago, where you can see some of the books that I grabbed recently, because all of them are definitely thrown into the potentials for 2025. Thank you very much for watching. Outro. There's so many good books coming out, it's ridiculous.